The appeal of farmers markets. Although farmers markets seem fashionable today, local foods have always been sold directly to local consumers, whether it be in street vendors, food retailers who are able to sell local produce, black markets for food in communist China, or the formal farmers markets available to most Americans today. Wherever there are high population densities, there are farmers markets. But even many small towns in the Midwest have decent access to farmers markets. Though nothing new, farmers markets are rapidly growing. Since 1994, the number of farmers markets has more than quadrupled. A locavore movement has emerged, where self-proclaimed locavores encourage others to buy local food not just because the food is often better, but for ethical reasons as well. A documentary called Locavore, Local Diet Healthy Planet, has been produced espousing the health, social, and environmental benefits of local foods. And if you are new to the locavore world and wondering where exactly you should go to obtain local food, don't worry, there's an app for that. What makes the movement so interesting is that it is asking us to avoid buying food from traditional grocery stores, and this is essentially asking us to trade less with the world. It asks us to rely more on small, simple markets like farmers markets for food, and less on the complex web of interconnected world markets that gives American consumers access to Thailand shrimp and gives American farmers the ability to export food to the world. As we will see, a reduction in imports is associated with a reduction of exports. So importing less food is the same as exporting less of other goods. Consequently, is there any real difference between consumers voluntarily deciding to purchase only local goods and services and a government ban on all exports and imports? The answer is no in some ways, but yes in others. The role of farmers markets and the locavore movement is then straightforward in some ways and surprisingly complex in others. Although the title of this lecture refers to farmers markets, it really pertains to all sources of local foods, including food cooperatives and community-supported agriculture programs. The locavore movement is not just a private sector endeavor. Governments are actively involved, and so when we discuss the appeal of farmers markets, we must not only ask whether we want to spend our money on local foods, but whether governments should use taxpayer money to subsidize it. This lecture intends to clarify the role that local foods plays in our food system. For doing so helps us understand modern agriculture. Great reasons to be a locavore. An obvious reason to buy local is that the food just tastes better. We all know the best tasting tomatoes that you can find will be found locally at farmers markets. I can guarantee you that this asparagus is better than what they have at the stores, even my favorite store. And local foods also tends to be fresher, and that often means more nutritious. Now, it is true that when you freeze vegetables, that can be just as nutritious as local food, but freezing also does something to the taste. So whenever you come to a farmer's market because it tastes better, because it's fresher, it's more nutritious, those are great reasons to shop local.
Each farmer here has their own specialty. Some of the farmers specialize in greens, some of the farmers specialize in organics. The bakers are phenomenal. They each have their specialty, and oh my god, it is the best bread I've ever had.
Why do you like coming to the farmer's market? What's different about the food here than, say, you'd find in the grocery store?
Well, we certainly perceive that there's a lot to be obtained and attributes from natural foods, lack of preservatives and things like that we would get in packaged goods. So really it's an end result of what we think is really important to our basic health that comes from eating.
And what is it about, talk about the quality of local food. How do you see it different?
Well, it certainly lasts longer in the refrigerator.
It's always going to be delicious. Most of them pull it either the night before or that morning, get up right at the crack of dawn if they have to.
Yeah. Here's an example of how local food can differ from food in the grocery store. We just heard an individual express concern about preservatives in food. He comes to farmers market like this for food without preservatives. Go into a grocery store sometime and look at the ingredients on the bread there. There's going to be a lot of words that you don't understand, and if you don't know what the words are, well, that may scare you, or you may think because of that you don't know what the say bread is healthy or not. But if you come here and you look at the ingredients on, say, bread at the farmer's market, it's going to say three things: wheat flour, salt, and yeast. Health experts tell us that we should eat less processed food. One of the best ways of doing that is coming to a farmer's market like this. Another problem we have is that poor areas, poor neighborhoods, they call them food deserts, don't have access to good, healthy food. But that's being rectified in one way. There are some vendors here who accept food stamps and who accept WIC payments. That gives the poor access to free food, free healthy food.
Sometimes food is cheaper at the farmer's market. Rarely can local farmers compete with Walmart, but when sweet corn is ready for harvest, it is hard to find corn of equal quality at a cheaper price than those found at farmers markets. Whenever consumers can find products delivering more value, whether it be the same product at a lower price or higher quality product sold at a small premium, consumers should take advantage of the opportunity. And often this opportunity is found at farmers markets, community-supported agriculture, food cooperatives, and other markets where local food is purchased. Producing better food, regardless of whether it's better because of quality or price, is just like a factory turning out cheaper and more valuable products. It increases the wealth produced in a region, and therefore the wealth of the region overall. The joy of local foods.
Another reason to shop for local foods is that it generates an interest in agriculture. You can come to farmers markets like this and learn about new varieties of vegetables you've never seen before. See new types of, say, eggs that they don't normally sell in the grocery store. And as you learn more about food by shopping local, coming to farmers markets, you also tend to take a more active role in your diet and be more deliberate about the foods you purchase. You think more about what you eat. And chances are, when you take more control over what you eat and more interest in your food, you're probably going to eat healthier food.
Local foods is not just a niche market. It isn't just another form of food marketing. It's a food movement, what some might call a nascent food revolution. One objective of locavores is to convince you to cease mindless eating, to think deliberately about varieties of food available to you, where they are grown, how they are grown, and how they impact the environment and your health. I first realized this when I read an article by Adam Nicholson in the July 2013 edition of National Geographic. The article, titled "Hey Beautiful," described the emergence of Transylvania out of the communist bloc and into the modern capitalistic world. Most countries in a similar situation transferred to fewer, bigger farms, where much of the farm product was exported to other regions and much of what people ate was imported. This did not happen for Transylvania, at least not in regards to milk, and the reason has to do with the region's love for its land and the beauty of its hayfields, its festive, glamorous hayfields made beautiful by the polycultures of plants grown in the field, each giving off a different shape, color, and scent. A hayfield that is managed using industrial agricultural techniques, it'll result in a monoculture where there's one and only one form of grass of uniform height, uniform color, and uniform shape. Certainly that industrial hayfield is more productive and, when used as cattle feed, reduces the price of milk. Transylvania's love for its traditional hayfield, though, is so strong that a local market for milk developed, where consumers gladly pay the higher price for local milk in return for preserving their landscape and their traditions.
Some people, when they shop in the grocery store, they'll see a low food price and say, why is it so low? Is there some cost I'm not seeing? For instance, some people look at the very low price of eggs in a grocery store and they might wonder how the hens are treated. And you can't really ask the grocery store manager how the hens were treated. He might not even know where the eggs come from. But you can come to a farmer's market like the one in Stillwater. You can meet the person who raises the eggs and learn about different ways of producing eggs. This farm, for instance, they don't use the conventional cages for raising eggs. They have something similar to what you might call a free-range system. And what is free range? If you don't know what free range is, you can just come here, to buy the eggs and look at actual pictures of the farm. And so you can know exactly how the hens were treated. And if you feel the hens are happier, it may be worth paying a higher price at the farmer's market for those eggs. Meet Ethan Wall. He's a local farmer who sells eggs and lamb, among some other things, at the farmer's market. Ethan, you mentioned that a lot of people are interested in brown eggs in particular. Do you know why they prefer brown over white eggs?
I think there may be several things. Probably some people have the perception that brown eggs are more healthy, which I don't think there's any difference on that. Some people might also like the brown eggs, then they're confident that you didn't buy them in the store and then resell them. There may be some other things, but I haven't heard any other reasons.
Right. And you said a lot of people, when you first started selling here, a lot of people asking questions about the eggs, how will the chickens raised and stuff, and that gave you the idea to put pictures of your farm. Were the pictures enough, or do people still ask questions about the hens?
The pictures pretty much explain it. There, some questions still about the feed, but as long as they know that what the picture shows what the chickens are doing, then they see they're on grass and can live like a chicken, then they like that.
Yeah. And when people are looking for local lamb, they want to make sure the lamb you're selling for sheep raised very close to here, right?
Yes.
But you said they also wanted to make sure that the feed that you feed the sheep was locally produced. Why?
Some do. Some don't care, but some like it if just to support the local economy.
Do you hear that a lot? Support the local economy?
Maybe not real often, but I do some.
Right.
Economically feasible to do that. So,
And you said most people, when they come into the farmer's market, they're here mostly to buy vegetables. What kind of questions do you get about your vegetables?
they're more concerned on the vegetables, whether or not they've been sprayed with pesticides or herbicides. They want to know whether they're GMO. They want to know if they're genetically modified.
The locavore movement is as much about education as it is food marketing. Education is why Will Allen constructed greenhouses in what we call food deserts, which are usually poor urban neighborhoods where little fresh, unprocessed food can be found, so that people in poor urban areas can learn more about how food is grown and taste fresh organic vegetables straight off the living plant. Other locavores are constructing vegetable gardens at schools and hosting field trips so that kids can become acquainted with food and agriculture at an early age. Mary Berry, who's the executive director of the Berry Center, once stated, "Urban people's interest in where the food comes from and the quality of it, their worry about poison food, soil loss, toxicity, etc., is a good thing. If we stick only with the local food part of the movement, it's not going to amount to much. We've got to simultaneously talk about cultural change and land use more generally." Unquote. The education component of local foods isn't supported just because it might help people eat healthier, but in hopes that it might encourage consumers to support farmers who provide not just food, but what we might call public goods. Public goods, non-technical definition might be a good or a component of a good that belongs not to the individual but to the community. Examples of public goods include soil conservation, better animal treatment, environmental protection, food for the poor, and the like. Such locavores are convinced that the current system of industrial agriculture fails to provide such public goods, and thus the only way the community can correct for this is for concerned citizens to assert more control over how food is raised, and they believe they can best do this if the farms are close. When people are surveyed about why they visit farmers markets, supporting sustainable and organic foods are some of the top reasons. Locavores thus want food to be grown near to them so that it's easier for them to influence how their food is grown.